Welcome to Dream, Declare, Deliver with Chris Carell and Candace Ogren. Join us each week as we explore how to live a life by design and turn inspiration into realization.
Hello and welcome back to Dream, Declare, Deliver, which is a show that Chris and I have started on living your life by design. We are big believers in a life by design. We think it's completely possible for every person to have these tools and to be able to create the lives that they want. And we're here to guide you along the process, the way that we're learning ourselves. And we were talking last week about the art of letting go. And after we finished the episode, we said, well, that was great, except for I'm sure a lot of people are looking at us saying, what? Like, how do I let it go if I'm still holding on to it? Like, and so Chris and I decided that let's take a step back, or maybe 2 steps back, and let's talk about shifting. And shifting is an art in and of itself. It's like actually recognizing that you're in your moment, that you're in it, whatever that is, that poop-filled backpack we talked about last week, that you got it, and then doing something about it. And so this is again in the deliver portion of the Dream, Declare, Deliver. But what you'll also hear today is that dreaming part is really important here. And that these aren't linear. Dream, declare, deliver is not linear, meaning that once you have your dream in place, you don't have to forget about it and now go off and deliver. Your dream's going to keep coming up over and over and over again. And we want that to happen because it allows you to anchor yourself in something that matters to you.
Yeah. And actually it may not come up, but it's something you get to choose and remember and use as your touchstone, the whole way through the process. So, we'll keep coming back to the importance of your dream, like what happens when we start addressing the whole topic of shifting. The first thing that you have to do is just stop, recognize that this isn't working. Whatever it is, isn't working. And once you're able to do that, that might be a point where you can say, wait, what is my dream? What is my vision here? Is my vision to have a 10 relationship, or is my vision to have a successful day at work, or a success in my business? It might be sufficient just to stop right there and remember your vision. And
let's just take a minute on stop. Yeah. So I think stop is easier said than done sometimes. Often, I often, my boss, the CEO of my company is a brilliant man, and is also very fast. He thinks very quickly. And, we're always communicating via Slack. That's the method that we use to communicate throughout the day. And I call it a Slack smack. When he he'll be coming at me with something that he wants done that's not being done fast enough, and it'll start feel like I'm getting smacked across the face. And in that moment, I want us to all just stop. Yeah. And because it allows you to take a breath and reground yourself, figure out what's going on. And so a lot of times when you notice it, it's when your blood's rising. If you're in an argument with someone you love, you notice your blood is rising, and that's the best time to find a safe word for yourself. Mine is apple. Okay, apples, I gotta take a break. I gotta take a breath. And my husband knows, okay, that means Candace is, she's stopping for now. Any tips you have on stopping, Chris?
I think it's, like you said, it's one of the harder things to do because a lot of times what happens inside of our interpretations is what I call the ladder of inference. And so one interpretation leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. It's kind of an if-then. Well, if this is what's happening now, then that means this. And so we make an interpretation on top of the interpretation. So sometimes that accelerates, and it's really hard to put the brakes on that.
Can you give an example of that so the listeners can make sense of?
Sure. So if I'm having a disagreement, argument, or something like that with my wife, and she's upset and leaves, has to go to work because she's got something going on there. So it's incomplete. Part of me says, well, if she's upset about this thing here, that means there's something else behind it. And it's probably that I'm not, fulfilling my, part of the bargain. And if she thinks I'm not fulfilling my part of the bargain, then she's probably angry about this also, some other part of our relationship. And if she's upset about, that part of our relationship, then maybe the whole relationship is at risk. And, do you hear how it happens?
I can also hear your voice getting higher and higher and higher.
Yeah, right. So I'm not too
I'm getting more stressed out. I'm getting more stressed out as you're walking through.
Yeah. So just being able to stop that process is wait. I'm making a whole series of inferences here, and that's not serving me.
Oftentimes, one thing I'll give another quick example, but mine, since I mentioned my boss, I'll just mention this. I was laid off once, like 2008, 2009, when the economy fell apart. My company, my law firm laid me off. And the reason I bring this up is I have always had a fear since then of losing my job. Like I'm just always afraid of losing my job. Now, I have a lot of evidence to prove that I'm not going to lose my job, but yet I always have that fear. So when that slack smack happens, when my boss gets frustrated and says, why hasn't this been done? My ladder of inference takes me down to, you're going to get fired. And and you're going to lose your job. And every time it happens, I still have that same, my whole body reacts in that way that like, oh, Candace, you're going to get fired. And the ladder of inference makes no sense. If you're just looking at the single act. Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be related also to some bigger or older thing than just, I was once fired or something, once upon a time, I think in, fourth grade or something like that, I was sent to the principal's office because I'm a smart mouth and I was, not appropriate. I was being insubordinate. She wrote insubordinate on a piece of paper and said, go ask the principal what that means. She's always a teacher. She was really good. And so where my brain goes in if I get a slack smack, is back to the principal's office. I'm going to get sent to the principal's office. It's the same sort of thing. So these old stories are part of that if then process that, we get to unwind. The way that we deal with that is to recognize what are the rungs on the ladder. What are the if then? So we're here and we got to walk down the ladder first to get to like what actually happened here, So we stop our own series of interpretations, get back to the question of, wait, this isn't working. What actually is happening here and what's going on? One thing for our listeners to do is to just take a piece of paper and write down just anything that you're stuck in right now, whether it's finance or work or a relationship or a friendship or something. Just write one thing down that you're feeling stuck in, and then just assume that it goes wrong. Like just assume that whatever you're stressed out about right now, that it goes wrong. So if this goes wrong, then what happens? If that happens, then what happens? And give yourself 5 steps. And oftentimes it will be like, then I die, then I lose this person, then whatever. I'll be penniless, right?
Whatever the worst case situation is. And then you can say, oh my gosh, I'm actually reacting to step 5, not step 1.
Right.
That's a really important. So that might be a good practice from this podcast episode.
Great idea. Yeah.
And so step two. So if step 1 is just stopping, when you recognize that you're starting to spin it up, stop, take a breath, get a safe word, use Apple, whatever. Step 2 is acknowledging that this is your interpretation, acknowledging, oh, wow, I've taken this 5 steps down the ladder. And if I can acknowledge that, Chris, then what do I do with it?
Well, if you acknowledge that it's an interpretation, then the question that follows that is, what's another interpretation that might serve my vision? And again, we come back to that anchor, that touchstone that we have of our vision. So this interpretation isn't taking me in that direction. What will take me in the direction of my vision? And we get to ask a different question and come up with a number of different interpretations. Don't stop at the first one, because a lot of times my brain will throw out test cases, silly examples in different interpretations. Oh, well, of course, it could be, Mars is in retrograde, or, it'll throw something out like that. I better write a couple more down, and then I can choose from among the different interpretations which one takes me closer towards my vision.
Yeah. And Andrew and I went to a couples retreat with a woman named Lynn Sheridan, who's a very dear friend of both mine and Chris's. And Lynn actually gave a suggestion on how to do this. So she said, what I would recommend is that when you're feeling like you're getting ready to be in it, take 30 minutes and let one person speak for 30 minutes, take a break for 30 minutes, and then let the other person speak for 30 minutes. And what that does is, first of all, it forces you to stop. Like if you're the person listening, you are not allowed to speak for an hour. And during that time, it allows you to take in the facts, to recognize your ladder of inference and what you're making up about it, to decide, is this really what I want for this relationship, this friendship, this marriage? And then choose something else. And anytime Andrew and I are feeling like we're getting up against it, then we say, okay, it's time for our 30 minutes. And we know what that means, right? Like that's like our apple. But it's like okay, let's stop. And then let's reground ourselves. But you brought up something, Chris, that I think is super important. The vision, regrounding yourself in your vision. So it's really important that you know what you want at all times, because it's clear for us what we don't want. Oftentimes when we're talking to our students or our clients, we'll ask them, what do you want? And they'll say, well, I don't want my marriage to be like it is. I don't want my financial situation to be like it is. I don't want my job to be like this. And it's like, okay, I'm clear on what you don't want, but what do you want?
Yeah.
And so my invitation is always just to keep asking yourself, what do I want? What do I want in my career? What do I want in my marriage? What do I want with my kids? Because if you're not clear on what you want, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
You're going to get what you don't want.
Yeah, and we talked about in the dream discussion earlier, we talked about making it a five senses vision. So what, really get into the whole picture, the feeling, the experience of what it is that you want, not just a concept, an abstract concept. So that has the power to be your anchor that you can keep coming back to, and when you get in trouble, and recognize that this isn't going the right way. We do similar kind of thing in talking. We also have a code word, and we refer to it as being pointy-headed. And so that's a code that says, all right, stop, wait, I'm really experiencing your opinion and your interpretation, and it's not serving us, and so I can call her on it and she can call me on it, when that's not working. And that allows us to sit down and listen, cause that's a big element of what's going on. If it's not about a relationship though, if it's just something that, is an external event, and like, I have friends who live in Turkey, and there was a magnitude 7.8 earthquake there yesterday. My brain goes, if then, like, how are my friends? And, can I get through to them? And is their family okay? And so on. So if it's just an external event, I'm going to be working on myself. There's not the other person to call on it. It's just really, what's my interpretation here? And, how do I choose differently? How do I come up with a different thing? Oh, my vision, go back to the starting point. What is it that I want? So when it's just about you, Candace, what do you do to kind of turn on a dime and get your head back in the game?
Well, it depends. It depends on the situation. So I was just thinking as you were talking that like journaling is really helpful for me. So when I'm in it, and like I get seasonal affective disorder, I know a lot of people who do, some very good friends of mine do. And like in the wintertime, like I'm not great often. Like I have a lot of dark days in the wintertime. And like I'm not from New England and I live in New England now. And so I even have darker days because like a foreigner in the wintertime. But when I'm in those moments, honestly, one of the things that I do is I have accountability partners. And so yes, it's me that's dealing with it. I'm in my head, but then I also will reach out and say, hey, listen, I'm in my head and I'm in a dark spot. You're one of them, Chris. I call you often. And I'll say, hey, I'm in a dark spot. What I tell my students is like, what's inside my head is a bad neighborhood. There's like gang violence going on in here and cars are being flipped over and there's fires and all of that, right? As soon as I take it out of inside my head and I share it with you, Chris, it gives whatever I'm stuck in a little bit less power.
Right.
And because you're my accountability partner on these things, you'll reflect back to me my vision because you know me. And so we'll have that conversation and it allows me then to move in a different direction. You had nothing to do with the inciting event. You had nothing to do with whatever in my dark day, but you do know me well enough to ask me questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you?
I was going to suggest the same thing because when I talk it out, I had an issue yesterday and I really got stuck in my own interpretation of it. So when I called up I called two of my accountability buddies. When I called them up, he said, so, that other person's opinion of you is none of your business, and I said, okay, so I'm making it my business. I'm interpreting it, a certain way. What if it's just that other person's having a rough time and it's not about me and I'm taking it personally, so, that really broke through a big chunk of the emotional part that I was holding on to because I was certain that I was at fault. That it's always my fault anyway. I just might as well admit it, so, but having, somebody else to do that. Now we're both extroverts, and I always say extroverts talk to think, introverts think to talk, so they'll always think beforehand. So it's important also if you're more of an internal processor, somebody who really, if you're asked your opinion on something, you'll say, well, let me think about that for a minute. And then you'll speak. Whereas if somebody asks my opinion on that, I'll just start talking and it'll come out, but so for introverts, it's really important to take that quiet time to stop, go journal. That's a great technique for introverts, to help them see what it is that they're actually thinking. Because when you write it down, it comes out differently than when it's spinning in your head.
Or meditation. One of the things that I've learned meditation is as an extrovert, that's a real stretch for me. But in meditation, I get to calm all the voices in my head. We joke about calling those a committee, right? There's so many voices in my head telling me what I should and shouldn't be doing. But if I'm able to calm those down, I can get clarity. So meditation is also something that I'd recommend. But I would love to just share, like, I was talking with Chris before we started this recording, and I having been doing this now for about 5 years, I recognized myself doing shifting this week. So my husband and I went to Cincinnati to visit my grandma. We brought my three-year-old son with us, and we had a lovely weekend. And we got home, got into our car in the parking garage, and realized that we left our car key in Cincinnati. And we're a couple of hours away from home. It was late at night on Sunday night. We all had work the next day, and one version of Candace, a different version of Candace, would have turned that into a giant, argument. Meltdown. And however, on January 1st, I made a New Year's resolution, my declaration that my vision for my life and my marriage was to have a 10 marriage and to really pour myself into my husband this year. So this happened, and the key's missing. Andrew was the one who forgot it in Cincinnati. And it would have been an easy one to, blame. But I was like, nope, 10 marriage. That's what I'm pouring into. So I said, okay, we've got a plan. I'm going to take Ivor. We're going to go to grandma's house. It's right down the street. Ivor's going to go to bed. I'm going to take care of things while you get the key. he gets the key. He comes back. I've had a bed made up for him. We're ready to snuggle. We wake up the next morning. We have a big breakfast together, and we all get to work on time the next morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff is real.
Right.
Because I was in that moment. It was an outside event that was like, that had an opportunity to completely take me down the rabbit hole. And this process really supported.
Yeah. The form of meditation I use to quiet the committee is there's a retreat center nearby our house, just about 5 miles away, that has a woodland stone labyrinth. And I do walking meditation because it's enough to occupy my brain and keep it quiet while I'm following the path. And so going around that whole circle, by the time I get to the center stone, I've kind of forgotten the committee, and, besides which they didn't even invite me to the meeting. They're just going on and on back here. But I've been able to quiet that enough to have perspective. And it's usually walking back out of the labyrinth that I feel my pace quickening and, getting ready to get back to normal and back to a place where I can make a choice to shift, and let go of what it was that I was holding on to. Emotions help, are almost like the glue that has you hold on to, an interpretation. So anytime I have that emotional, piece of it going on, I'm trying to look at, well, where's that emotion really coming from? Is my emotional level equal to the incident, or is there a difference? I mean, because there are some things, the emotion is the appropriate emotion for whatever's happening here. But when it's this way, there's some other things going on in my interpretation, and that's what I get to let go of. So when we talked about letting go, it really was not letting go of the whole thing, but letting go of the interpretation part that's attached to something else in the back. This is not that. And so when I'm in that moment, I can make a new choice.
And you may not know what the interpretation is. So like, as you're talking about letting go, Chris, like, one of mine is bad customer service. Like, whenever I get bad customer service, my emotion is not equal to what is happening. I get really angry and really frustrated, raise my voice. And I think, what is up with this? Why do I let this phone call change my complete emotional state? And so what would you recommend if we don't know what the interpretation is? I don't have a childhood trauma, I don't think, that's tied to bad customer service. Yet it happens every time I get bad customer service.
Yeah. So what is it that you're saying about yourself? What's the interpretation that has you really react, so emotionally to bad customer service?
No, I mean, I think it's probably that I'm not being heard, and that I'm misunderstood. And that's probably like, I've always felt like I wasn't being heard, which is why I talk so much. And so that probably is it. And I can probably tie that back to, being, told to not talk so much as a child, but like, it gets me every time.
Yeah. Well, and mine is all about respect. I must not be, that person must not respect me. And I just, I grew up in a family where respect was the number one thing. My dad was in the military, respect for rank, respect for process, things like that were really big in my house. So when somebody is having a bad customer service day and they, put it on me, I think they're not respecting me. So whatever it is that when we start looking at, well, what's the source of that feeling? Why am I getting so angry? It's just this, so why am I getting so angry is a good indicator, or why am I getting so upset is a good indicator that, something in here is touching my old stuff, my old stories. And that's what I, want to get a hold of and then say, okay, so that doesn't serve me. How do I let go of that?
Thank you for the coaching. Cause I was like, this just happened with my airline like 2 days ago. I think you think you're on the other side of this. And I think one thing I'll just say in this whole conversation is there is no other side. So there's not gonna be like one day you wake up and your life looks totally different. Like I just told the story of Andrew, losing the key and how that was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. Like we have a 10 marriage right in this moment. I don't feel like that every day. And I don't feel like that in every moment. There's still moments where like we're up against it. Chris and I are still in it. And it's an ongoing practice.
Yeah, I've been doing this, for 30 years and it's still not over. It's still not done. I'm not complete. I'm a being in the process of becoming something, and that becoming will be evident on my deathbed, probably, it's always an ongoing process. And every time we get a chance to do something like this, to stop and look at what it is that our interpretations are, we get one step closer to becoming, more complete. But it's an ongoing process. It's a practice that you practice every day, or as often as it comes up, you want to practice that. Because it's in the practice that we get muscle memory on how to. So situations will still happen. But if I have the muscle memory, then the distance between, the event and when I'm able to shift and let go, gets smaller and smaller. So I'm able to turn things around a lot faster now than I did many years ago. It would take me weeks and weeks to get over something like that. I'd harbor resentment and carry it around and take it out on everybody else, and now it's like, in a matter of if it's a really big thing, in a matter of about an hour, I'm back to, okay, life is choice. Here's my choice. This is my vision. Here's where I'm going.
And that's one of the ways you can tell if you're growing in this work is just measuring the distance in time between when you got triggered and when you were able to shift. Mm-hmm. And it may be like Andrew and I joke, on our honeymoon, we were joking that, or no, it was our baby moon. We were in Hawaii and we had gotten into an argument about money over dinner. And from the time that we ordered our dinner to the time that our dinner was delivered, the argument was complete. We had moved on. And my Andrew said, like, I can't believe we're still having this argument. Like, I'm so frustrated that we still had that argument. I'm like, yeah, but at the beginning of our marriage 5 years ago, this would have ruined our entire vacation. Now we're able to get to the other side of this between ordering and dinner being delivered. That's a win. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
So give yourself the celebration. I was able to shift faster this time.
Yeah. And notice the, self story again of, I should be over this, why are we still having this same argument? As if, having done the work or having gone through, transformation programs and things like that, I am complete and I'm, this will never happen again. That's just, fictional, something we made up, probably programmed by our education and things like that, where we complete a course and get an A and whatever. In this stuff, it's the life course, it's not over until it's over, and then you'll get something else. So we want to wrap it up there, and thank you all for joining us. By the way, the last step of doing this shifting process is step forward. So once you're able to recognize that it's an interpretation, look at the ladder of inference, and maybe talk yourself back down to rung one, what actually happened. Choose a new interpretation that serves your vision. Keep anchoring yourself in that. Then step forward. Because nothing is a decision until you take action on it.
And there is no wrong step as long as you're stepping into the direction of your vision for your life.
Yeah.
So there's no wrong direction. Just step forward.
Yeah. Excellent. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.